Before you drift into sleep tonight, let me take you back to a time before the world had shape. In the stillness before creation, the universe rested like a deep, endless breath. There were no stars, no sky, no mountains, only a soft, silent darkness waiting to awaken. From that silence, the first ancient beings emerged, slow and gentle like ripples across calm water. This was the age of the Titans, vast and powerful, shaping the world in its earliest form. Cronus, the keeper of time, ruled over all with a shadow that touched every corner of existence. But far from his watchful eyes, a quiet and hidden story was beginning. It was the story of a child carried in secret, protected by a mother's trembling hope. A child whose future would one day open the sky itself. In a secluded cave on the island of Crete, the first breaths of this child echoed softly against stone. The wind outside whispered through the mountains, as if guarding the fragile life within. This child was Zeus, small and quiet, unaware of the destiny waiting above him. Tonight, we will follow his gentle beginnings, from a hidden cradle to the first soft rumble of thunder. So settle your breathing, let your thoughts drift, and rest beneath the calm of this ancient story. And allow me to softly tell you how Zeus, the god of the open sky, truly rose to power. Zeus was not born a king, nor did he rise in power through force alone. He began as a hidden child, protected from a world much larger than himself. In his earliest years, he learned the sky, not through strength, but through quiet observation. He listened to the wind, as if it were a teacher, and watched the clouds, as if they carried secrets. Unlike the Titans, Zeus did not seek to control the world with fear. He grew with a gentle awareness of balance, of harmony, of things that needed calm rather than command. The thunder he would one day wield was not meant to frighten, but to bring order to a restless world. His symbols, lightning, the eagle, the open sky, became signs of guidance more than displays of power. Where other gods embodied chaos or emotion, Zeus' role became the still point that held everything together. He would stand between earth and heaven, between conflict and peace, between ancient forces and the lives of mortals. In the great tapestry of Greek mythology, Zeus represents stability in a time shaped by storms, and his rise to power is less a tale of conquest than a quiet journey toward responsibility. Tonight, we will follow this path gently, as it unfolds from hidden childhood to the throne of Olympus, and we will see how the god of the sky became the steady heartbeat of the ancient world. Rhea held the newborn child close to her chest, her hands trembling with the weight of fear and love intertwined. She walked into the night with quiet footsteps, moving as though the darkness itself was shielding her from every danger. The air around her was cool and thin, carrying the faint scent of pine needles crushed beneath her hurried steps. Above her, the sky remained empty and starless, a silent canvas untouched by light or hope. Rhea kept her eyes forward, refusing to look back toward the land where Cronus ruled with suspicion and hunger. She knew that if she hesitated even for a heartbeat, the child in her arms would face a fate too cruel to imagine. Cronus had devoured every child before this one, swallowing them whole to keep himself safe from the prophecy that haunted him. But Rhea could not allow that tragedy to happen again. Not to this small and fragile spark of life resting against her skin. Zeus was her last hope, a final chance to break the endless cycle of fear that had defined her motherhood. The wind whispered softly against her cheeks, almost as if offering comfort as she slipped into the shadows of the mountains. Every rustle of leaves felt sharper than usual. Every distant sound, a warning that time was running short. Yet Rhea's resolve only deepened, her steps steadying as she neared the hidden path to the island of Crete. The path wound around steep cliffs, where the sound of the ocean below rose and fell like a deep, ancient breath. Rhea paused only once, adjusting the cloth around her child to shield him from the cold sea wind. Zeus stirred lightly, letting out a sound so soft it blended with the whisper of the waves. That small sound pushed Rhea forward again, reminding her of the fragile heartbeat she was desperate to protect. As she climbed higher into the mountains, the world around her grew quieter, as if holding its breath at her determination. The moon remained hidden behind thick clouds, giving her shelter beneath a blanket of darkness. Rhea felt grateful for the cover, even as her steps became heavier with exhaustion. Her journey was long, but the promise of safety was stronger than the ache in her bones. Finally, the narrow entrance to the sacred cave of Mount Dictych came into view, glowing faintly with torchlight. The warm orange light flickered like a heartbeat within the stone walls, as though the cave itself awaited her arrival. The Curetes, sworn guardians of the child, stepped forward with solemn faces as Rhea approached. Their armor gleamed lightly in the fire's glow, but they moved with the softness of those who understood the gravity of the moment. They surrounded Rhea in a protective half-circle, bowing their heads in silent respect as she stepped inside. The cave was cool and spacious, with walls that held stories of ancient times within their quiet, unmoving faces. Rhea felt a fragile sense of relief wash over her as the air embraced her in gentle stillness. She carried Zeus deeper into the cavern until she reached a soft bed of moss prepared for him. Its surface glowed faintly under the torchlight, warm and inviting, like a cradle woven from the heart of the earth. With careful movements, she laid Zeus down, watching as he settled into the moss with peaceful ease. His tiny eyelids fluttered, and he let out a quiet sigh, as if sensing the safety of the place. The sound warmed Rhea's heart, filling her with a hope she had not felt in many years. Amalthea, the gentle goat nymph chosen to care for the child, stepped forward with a soft, almost reverent gaze. Her presence radiated calm, her movements slow and nurturing as she lowered her head toward the newborn. Zeus reached out with tiny hands, brushing the soft fur that shimmered in the warm glow of the torches. The bond formed instantly, a silent promise of protection and comfort. Rhea watched the moment with trembling breath, grateful beyond measure for the kindness she saw in Amalthea's eyes. The Curetes positioned themselves around the cave, ready to shield Zeus from every possible threat. Whenever the baby stirred or cried, they clashed their weapons with a rhythmic softness, masking any sound that might escape. The clashing echoed gently, more like ceremonial music than the noise of war, blending seamlessly with the cave's quiet atmosphere. Rhea stepped closer to her child once more, brushing a strand of hair from his tiny forehead. She whispered his name with the softness of a prayer, letting the syllables drift into the stillness. Zeus responded with a small, peaceful movement, as though recognizing his mother's voice. Tears gathered in Rhea's eyes, not from sadness, but from the fragile hope beginning to grow within her. She had saved him at least for now, and that was enough to steady her trembling heart. Outside the cave, the wind shifted, blowing gently against the entrance, as if guarding it from the world beyond. The torches flickered with calm, steady light, painting soft shadows across the cavern walls. The air smelled faintly of earth, moss, and the sweetness of new life. Rhea felt the weight of exhaustion begin to settle upon her shoulders, but she refused to leave just yet. She lowered herself beside her child, watching the peaceful rise and fall of his chest. In the dim glow, Zeus looked impossibly small, a quiet flame destined to one day light the heavens. Rhea whispered stories to him, stories of the world he would someday mend. She told him of rivers and mountains, of stars that had yet to shine, of a sky waiting to be opened. Her voice trembled with each word, but the trembling carried tenderness rather than fear. The cave listened, absorbing her quiet promises like a keeper of secrets. Zeus drifted into sleep, his breathing soft and steady like the gentle rhythm of distant waves. Amalthea curled beside him, offering warmth and protection with her calm, grounding presence. The Curetes stood guard, still and silent, as ancient statues carved from iron and devotion. Rhea closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sound of her son's peaceful breaths soothe her racing thoughts. For the first time since his birth, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond fear, a future where Zeus would grow strong, not through violence, but through resilience and quiet wisdom. A future where the sky belonged not to darkness, but to light. As the night deepened, the cave grew even more tranquil, embracing mother and child in its timeless calm. Outside, the world continued its silent turning, unaware of the small miracle hidden within the mountain. And within that hidden cradle of stone, the story of Zeus, the future king of the sky, began with silence, protection, and love. The first nights in the cave passed quietly, wrapped in a calm so deep it felt almost sacred. Zeus slept mostly in soft murmurs, unaware of the danger he had escaped, and the destiny waiting outside the stone walls. The glow from the torches painted warm circles of light around him, making the cavern feel like a sanctuary carved out of time itself. Amalthea kept close to him, her soft breaths forming a gentle rhythm that lulled even the shadows into stillness. Rhea watched them with tender eyes, memorizing the peaceful shape of her son's face before she would have to leave him again. The thought of parting tightened her chest, but she knew the cave was safer than any palace Cronus ruled over. She leaned down and pressed a final kiss on Zeus' forehead, whispering a silent prayer for his protection. Her footsteps faded into the darkness as she left, but her love remained behind like a quiet echo in the air. Zeus stirred in his sleep, sensing the shift of warmth beside him, though he did not wake. Amalthea lowered her head gently, brushing his cheek with the softness of her fur to soothe his dreams. Outside, the wind swept across the mountains with long, slow breaths, carrying the scent of the faraway sea. The cave's entrance remained guarded by the Curetes, their silhouettes still against the flickering light. Their armor was cold and hard, yet they stood like gentle sentinels protecting a fragile dawn. When night deepened, the distant stars finally emerged past the clouds, scattering faint silver light across the world. Inside the cave, the flicker of torches blended with the faint moonlight, creating a soft glow that dimly illuminated Zeus' small form. He shifted slightly, curling into the warmth of the moss, instinctively reaching for safety even in dreams. His fingers brushed the air, and a small, warm spark flickered at the tips before dissolving quietly. The nymphs noticed it, exchanging soft glances but saying nothing, as though the moment were too delicate to disturb. They had heard stories whispered in the old winds, stories of a child who would one day shine brighter than any flame. But now, he was simply a baby, fragile and unaware, searching for comfort in a world too young to understand him. Every dawn, the sun slipped through the small crevice in the cave's ceiling, touching Zeus' skin with gentle warmth. The light seemed to linger on him longer than on the stone, as if greeting someone it already knew. He would open his eyes slowly, blinking in the soft glow like a flower meeting daylight for the first time. The nymphs gathered around him quietly, their steps brushing lightly over the ground, as they brought fresh water and food. Amalthea stood over him protectively, her shadow forming a comforting shape that blocked the harsher rays. Zeus looked up at her with innocent wonder, drawn to the steady calm in her presence. He reached toward her softly, and she responded with a gentle nuzzle that made him smile in quiet contentment. Days passed like this, simple, peaceful, free from the storm of fear that existed beyond the mountain. Zeus learned to crawl on the soft moss, his hands brushing against the cool stone and warm patches of light. His small laughter echoed faintly through the cavern, a fragile sound that made even the Cretes soften their stern expressions. Whenever he cried, the warriors performed their rhythmic clashing ritual, a soft percussion that soothed him back into calm. Their shields met in a slow, deliberate tempo, not harsh or jarring, but steady, like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Zeus would fall quiet, lulled by the rhythmic music meant to protect him from Cronus' ears. As months passed, the cave transformed into a world of its own, a hidden cradle, untouched by fear or violence. The stone walls absorbed every tender moment, holding them gently like memories carved into their ancient surface. Zeus grew stronger, his movements more certain, his curiosity widening like the horizon of a dawning sky. He would watch the torch flames dance, mesmerized by the way they shifted and curled with every draft of wind. Sometimes, when he reached out, the flame would spark brighter, as though responding to his unspoken thoughts. The nymphs took notice, whispering softly among themselves about the strange harmony between the child and the elements. But they treated him with gentleness, never with fear, for they knew that destiny often began in quiet and fragile forms. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Zeus stood for the first time, balancing himself against a smooth stone wall. His legs trembled slightly, but the determination in his eyes shone with quiet fire. Amalthea stepped close, offering her side for support, allowing him to lean against her steady warmth. With a soft giggle, he pushed away gently and took a step forward, his feet touching the moss with tentative confidence. The nymphs watched with warm smiles, their hands clasped together in joy at the small miracle unfolding before them. Zeus took another step, then another, until he reached the far side of the cave, where a faint breeze drifted through a crack in the stone. He lifted his face toward it, letting the cool air brush across his cheeks like a tender greeting. The breeze stirred playfully around him, lifting a strand of his dark hair before swirling back out of sight. A soft sparkle formed at his fingertips again, brighter this time, though it vanished before anyone could comment. The cave seemed to hum quietly in approval, as though acknowledging the moment. Zeus let out a small sound of wonder, turning toward Amalthea with bright, curious eyes. She lowered her head, brushing her nose against his shoulder in gentle encouragement. He leaned into her touch briefly, then walked back toward his moss bed with a newfound confidence. That night, as he slept, the torches burned lower, their light dim and soothing against the cavern walls. The shadows danced slowly, moving like drifting clouds across the stone ceiling. Zeus breathed softly, each inhale and exhale syncing with the natural rhythm of the mountain. Outside, the world remained unaware of the future unfolding quietly in this hidden place. The stars shimmered faintly above the peaks, scattered like tiny promises waiting to be fulfilled. And within the cave, sheltered by guardians, nurtured by nymphs, and watched over by the gentle Amalthea, Zeus' childhood continued to grow in peace and secrecy. His beginnings were quiet, but the quiet carried purpose, like the soft rumble of a storm too distant to be heard yet powerful enough to change the world. As seasons quietly shifted across the island of Crete, the hidden cave remained a world untouched by the storms of the outside realm. Zeus grew slowly, his early steps turning into soft, sure strides across the moss-covered floor. The nymphs delighted in his curiosity, watching as he touched every stone and followed every whisper of wind with wide, wondering eyes. He learned to distinguish the warmth of dawn from the cool breath of night, long before he understood the language of words. Every morning, a beam of sunlight returned through the ceiling crevice, finding him with remarkable accuracy, as though guided by an ancient promise. Zeus would lift his small hands toward the light, and the brightness seemed to soften at his touch. Sometimes, the beam flickered for just a second, shimmering like a greeting, a gesture meant only for him. The nymphs whispered that the sky recognized its future keeper, even before he could name himself. Amalthea followed his every movement with a gentle, protective warmth, nudging him softly whenever he wandered too far. Her presence grounded him, a constant source of safety in the vastness of the cavern. Zeus often leaned against her side, closing his eyes as her steady breathing lulled him into quiet rest. On certain days, the Cretes would practice outside the cave, their shields catching faint sunlight as they moved in fluid patterns. Zeus watched them from the entrance, mesmerized by the shimmering arcs of metal and the soft thud of their controlled steps. The warriors noticed his fascination and performed their routines more gently, mindful of the child, who followed their movements with quiet awe. The rhythmic clashing of their shields, once meant to hide his cries, had become a familiar, comforting sound. Each metallic tap echoed with reassurance, telling him he was protected and never alone. Zeus would imitate them, lifting small pebbles as if they were shields, mimicking the circular motions he saw. The nymphs laughed softly at his determination, watching as he balanced himself like a tiny warrior in training. Though he did not yet understand combat, he understood rhythm, movement, and the quiet strength in stillness. One afternoon, a gentle rain began to fall outside, sending a soft melody of droplets against the cave's entrance. Zeus approached the opening, reaching his hand toward the sound, feeling the cool mist brush across his skin. The rain responded with a faint shimmer, forming tiny droplets that clung to his fingertips before rolling away. The cave air grew fresh and earthy, the smell of wet stone and moss filling the space with peaceful calm. Zeus opened his mouth in wonder, watching the rainwater trickle in small rivulets across the floor. He traced their paths with his fingers, creating little channels in the moss that redirected the flow. The nymphs gathered around, their delicate footsteps leaving barely a trace as they joined him in watching the moving water. It was in these quiet moments, simple, tender, unhurried, that Zeus grew not in power, but in understanding. He learned the softness of the world before he would ever learn its storms. He learned the patience of water, the warmth of sunlight, and the gentle loyalty of those who protected him. At times, the wind would slip into the cave, swirling in playful movements that seemed to dance around him. Zeus would laugh softly, trying to catch the invisible currents with both hands. The wind's playful touch often caused small sparks of light to appear near his palms, flickering like miniature stars. These sparks never frightened him. They felt familiar, as though they came from a place he already knew deep within. The nymphs watched with quiet reverence, sensing something sacred in the way the elements answered him. Amalthea would step beside him, her calm presence grounding the gentle bursts of energy that followed his touch. At night, when the cave grew cold, the nymphs wrapped him in woven blankets, warmed by the fire. Zeus drifted into sleep to the soft hum of their voices, singing songs older than the mountains outside. Their melodies floated like mist through the cavern, settling over him like a protective veil. The shadows danced carefully along the walls, moving in slow waves that lulled him deeper into rest. Sometimes Zeus dreamed of open spaces, vast skies, wide fields, and distant horizons he had never seen. In his dreams, he felt the sky calling to him with gentle warmth, a bond that stretched like a thread made of wind. He would awaken with a calm expression, as though carrying pieces of the sky back into the waking world. As he grew, his connection to the elements only strengthened, though he expressed it in soft, innocent gestures. When he touched the stone wall, it seemed to warm. When he breathed near the torches, the flames sometimes steadied as if listening. When he blinked slowly, the dust motes around him drifted in patterns too intentional to be coincidence. The nymphs never spoke of it aloud, but their eyes held quiet understanding. They knew they were witnessing the earliest signs of a god awakening, not through force, but through harmony. One evening, a faint rumble of thunder rolled across the distant sky, muffled by miles of mountain and cloud. The sound was so soft that even the Cretes barely noticed it. But Zeus looked up immediately, his eyes widening in recognition. It was the first time he had ever heard thunder, and yet it felt achingly familiar, like a forgotten lullaby, suddenly returning. He stepped toward the cave entrance, drawn by the distant voice of the storm. The wind brushed his hair lightly, as though urging him forward but not too far. Zeus extended his hand into the cool air, and for a moment, everything became still. The cave seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Then, a tiny spark danced across his palm, soft, pale, harmless before fading into the night. It left no burn, no fear, only a quiet warmth that spread through his hand and up his arm. Amalthea stepped close, placing herself beside him, sensing the moment's weight even in its gentleness. Zeus leaned against her, feeling both grounded by her presence and lifted by the strange comfort of the distant thunder. The nymphs exchanged looks of quiet wonder, aware that something within him was beginning to awaken. but they let the moment pass without words, allowing him to discover his own connection to the world. For now, he was still a child, one whose earliest memories were not of storms, but of gentle winds and quiet safety. And in that peaceful childhood, sheltered beneath the mountain, the future king of the sky continued to grow in silence and serenity. As months drifted slowly into years, the cave of Mount Dicte remained the quiet cradle of Zeus' hidden life. The world outside changed with each passing season, but within the cave, time moved softly, like a long and gentle breath. Zeus continued to grow, not in sudden bursts, but with the steady patience of a child, shaped by peace rather than fear. His steps became quieter, his senses sharper, as though the cave itself had taught him how to listen to the language of nature. He learned the subtle rhythms of dripping water, the soft flutter of wings from distant caverns, and the shifting hum of the wind. Every sound layered itself into his memory, forming a symphony of calm that shaped his understanding of the world. Amalthea watched over him with unwavering devotion, guiding him with gentle nudges and soft, motherly breaths. When he wandered toward the deeper parts of the cave, she walked beside him, her presence a cocoon of safety. The shadows in those deeper chambers were cooler and thicker, weaving patterns across the stone, like ancient stories etched in darkness. Zeus traced those shadows with his fingers, imagining secrets hidden in their shapes. The walls were carved by nature's patient hand, filled with smooth waves and jagged ridges that echoed his touch. Sometimes, when he pressed his palm against the stone, he felt warmth rise from within, as though the mountain itself acknowledged him. He often paused there, listening to the faint rumble of the earth's quiet heartbeat beneath his feet. It comforted him in a way he could not explain, a steady reminder that even the ground held kindness. The nymphs observed him from a short distance, marveling at how naturally he interacted with the elements around him. They whispered among themselves about his destiny, careful to keep their voices soft enough not to disturb his fragile innocence. To them, Zeus was not yet a god. He was a child of stone, wind, and light, shaped by the gentleness of the hidden world. During calm afternoons, Zeus often sat near the cave entrance, watching the shifting colors of the sky. He was not allowed to step outside, but the nymphs would open the entrance curtain of branches just enough for him to see the horizon. The sky fascinated him endlessly, even though he had never touched it. He watched clouds drift slowly across the open blue, each one moving like a quiet thought crossing the mind of the world. Sometimes the sky turned gold, and rays of sunlight spilled across the mountains in soft, glowing layers. Zeus would reach out, as if he believed he could catch the colors in his hands. On rare evenings, when the sky darkened with approaching storms, he felt an inexplicable excitement stir within him. The distant murmurs of thunder rolled across the land like ancient voices calling from far away. The sound resonated deep inside him, tugging gently at something he did not yet understand. Zeus would lean forward, eyes wide, drawn to the low rumble that felt more like memory than sound. Amalthea stayed close during those moments, nudging him softly when the wind picked up. He looked at her with a mixture of wonder and calm, reassured by her steady presence. The nymphs watched carefully, aware that every storm awakened a little more of the power resting quietly within him. At night, the cave was filled with warm shadows cast by flickering torches, painting the stone in slow-moving waves. Zeus often lay awake, tracing shapes in the soft light as he listened to the gentle rustle of the nymphs preparing for rest. Their whispered songs floated through the air like strands of silk, weaving warmth into the cool cavern. He drifted to sleep with those melodies wrapping around him, forming dreams filled with skies he had never seen up close. In his dreams, he soared above mountains, touching clouds that shone like silver under moonlight. He felt the wind lift him gently, as if it recognized him as its own. He always woke from those dreams, feeling peaceful, even though he could never describe them to anyone. As he grew taller, the cave that once felt vast began to feel more like a home than a hiding place. He decorated corners of the cavern with small stones he collected from near the entrance, arranging them into patterns that made sense only to him. Sometimes he created spirals, sometimes circles, always with a level of quiet focus that fascinated the nymphs. They found his careful arrangements touching, a sign of his gentle nature and the calmness that shaped him. Zeus also learned kindness from them, the way they shared food, the way they spoke softly, the way they treated every life with respect. He absorbed their lessons silently, allowing them to settle into his heart like seeds planted in fertile soil. Though destiny tugged faintly at him, he remained a child shaped more by small tendernesses than by power. One day, as he played with smooth pebbles on the cave floor, a soft breeze drifted through the entrance. It circled around him slowly, lifting a few pebbles before placing them gently back in their places. Zeus watched the movement with calm fascination. Not startled but quietly delighted, he lifted his hand, inviting the breeze closer, and it responded with a delicate swirl that brushed his fingers. The nymphs watched with wide eyes, recognizing the subtle exchange between child and sky. The moment lasted only a breath, but it revealed a truth none of them dared to speak aloud. The world was beginning to answer him, not with thunder, but with gentleness. Zeus lowered his hand slowly, feeling the warmth left behind by the playful wind. Amalthea approached him, brushing her nose against his shoulder with a soft exhale. He leaned into her touch, comforted and grounded once more. In the calm of the cave, surrounded by protectors and nurtured by nature itself, Zeus continued to grow not into a warrior, but into a being of quiet harmony. His earliest lessons were not of conquest, but of balance, not of battle, but of breath. And in that stillness, beneath layers of stone and silence, the first whispers of his true identity continued to awaken in the gentlest possible way. As years passed gently within the sheltered cave, Zeus' quiet world expanded in small, meaningful ways. He grew taller, his steps no longer uncertain, but soft and steady like the movement of drifting clouds. Every corner of the cavern became familiar to him, the cool shadows, the warm patches of moss, the gentle hum of the earth. He knew the cave's rhythms so well that he could sense subtle changes even before they appeared. When rain approached, he felt a faint tremble in the stones beneath his feet. When sunlight shifted, he noticed the smallest variations in brightness that others overlooked. The nymphs marveled at how attuned he was to the world around him, as though nature itself whispered in a language he instinctively understood. Amalthea continued to guide him with quiet devotion, her steady presence a constant reassurance. Zeus often rested against her side, absorbing the warmth she offered without asking for anything in return. He had learned that safety did not come from strength, but from gentle bonds forged through trust and care. Some evenings, the nymphs gathered around a small fire to weave tales of the world beyond the mountain. Their stories painted images of forests stretched across the land, rivers that shimmered like moving glass, and skies that changed colors with the passing hours. Zeus listened with wide, dreaming eyes, collecting each story as though they were treasures meant to be kept close to his heart. He longed to see those places, though he felt no impatience, only a calm curiosity that settled deep within him. The nymphs often told him about the constellations, describing how the stars formed shapes that guided sailors and travelers. Zeus imagined the sky as a vast tapestry, silent and endless, waiting for someone to understand its language. He wondered what it would feel like to touch the stars, to cradle the moonlight in his hands, or to stand beneath the open sky without a cave ceiling above him. These thoughts grew inside him quietly, like seeds absorbing gentle water. Whenever he felt overwhelmed by wonder, he would turn to Amalthea and rest his forehead against her warm fur. She responded with soft breaths that wrapped him in comfort, grounding him in the present while allowing his spirit to wander freely. The Curetes remained steadfast at the entrance, their loyalty deepening with each year that passed. They observed Zeus with the protective affection of elder brothers, silently admiring his gentle nature. When he approached them, they knelt slightly, allowing him to examine the intricate patterns etched into their shields. He traced the swirling designs with curious fingers, feeling a quiet pull toward the symbols shaped from ancient metal. They taught him simple rhythms by tapping their shields in soft, controlled patterns that echoed through the cave. Zeus listened to the beats with rapt attention, his body swaying gently to the steady pulse. Sometimes he would mimic the rhythms by tapping softly against the stone walls, creating delicate echoes that floated like tiny bells. The sound soothed him, forming a strange harmony that made the cave feel even more alive. One cool evening, as twilight draped the mountains in soft blue, Zeus felt a subtle change in the air. The breeze outside grew warmer, carrying a faint scent of distant lightning. He stepped toward the entrance, drawn by the familiar feeling that tugged gently at his chest. A low rumble vibrated in the distance, softer than a whisper, but unmistakably the voice of thunder. Zeus' eyes widened, his heart quickening with a warmth he could not explain. The nymphs watched silently, recognizing the quiet awakening unfolding beneath the soft twilight. As the first flash of distant light shimmered across the sky, Zeus raised his hand. The moment stretched like a held breath, delicate and full of meaning. A tiny spark danced between his fingertips, warm and harmless, glowing like a firefly before fading back into the darkness. The cave remained still, its shadows frozen in reverent quiet. Zeus lowered his hand slowly, not in fear, but in soft amazement at the warmth lingering on his skin. Amalthea moved beside him, pressing her body gently against his, as if grounding him back into the calm of the cave. He leaned into her touch, letting the excitement settle into a peaceful hum within his chest. The nymphs exchanged understanding glances, though none spoke aloud, preserving the sacredness of the moment. They sensed that Zeus was beginning to feel the call of his true nature, though only in the gentlest beginnings. That night, as Zeus lay upon his moss bed, the faint echoes of thunder lingered beyond the mountains like a lullaby only he could hear. He closed his eyes and listened to the quiet promise woven within the distant rumble. It was not a call to power, but a call to understanding, a reminder that the world outside the cave was waiting patiently for him. Zeus drifted into sleep with a calm heart, unaware of how deeply the sky had already claimed him. In the quiet darkness, the cave wrapped around him like a protective cradle, holding the future king of the heavens in its gentle embrace. The torches flickered low, painting soft gold across his resting face. And beneath the mountain's sheltering weight, Zeus' childhood continued to unfold in silence, tenderness, and the soft awakening of a destiny written long before he took his first breath. Years passed softly beneath the mountains, and Zeus' gentle childhood slowly gave way to the quiet awareness of a larger world waiting beyond the cave. He no longer felt content to remain only within the calm stone cradle that had sheltered him since birth. Something deep within him stirred a subtle pull that felt older than memory, older than the mountain, older even than the calm winds that greeted him every morning. The nymphs sensed the change, watching him with tender understanding as he stood for long moments at the cave entrance, gazing toward distant horizons he had never touched. Amalthea stayed close by his side, her steady presence both protective and comforting, yet she too knew that his path could not remain bound to the cavern forever. Zeus felt it most clearly during evenings when thunder murmured far across the sky, calling to him in tones both familiar and mysterious. Each rumble settled into his chest like a forgotten truth awakening from sleep. He would close his eyes and listen, feeling as though the sky itself was whispering his name. One morning, the air shifted with a strange clarity, a calm so deep it felt like the world was pausing just for him. Zeus stepped beyond the cave entrance for the very first time, guided not by impulse, but by a gentle certainty that the moment had arrived. The Curetes watched with silent reverence, allowing him to cross the boundary that had protected him for so long. The sunlight touched his skin with a warmth deeper than anything he had felt before, a soft and honest welcome from the world above. He breathed in the open air, taking in the scent of wild thyme and fresh earth carried on a gentle breeze. It felt like the first true breath of his life. The world unfolded around him in colors he had only imagined from the stories told by the nymphs, deep greens of forest, pale golds of distant cliffs, shimmering blues of sky stretching endlessly above him. Zeus walked slowly, savoring each step, each sensation, each whisper of wind brushing against his cheek. Then, without warning, the breeze shifted and gathered gently before him, swirling in a delicate spiral that glittered faintly with golden dust. From within the shimmer, a soft voice spoke, a voice both warm and wise, like water flowing over ancient stone. Zeus, the voice said, calm as moonlight. He did not startle. The sound felt familiar, as though he had heard it in dreams. The golden light drew closer, shaping itself into the form of a woman with gentle eyes and hair that flowed like liquid dawn. This was Metis, the goddess of deep wisdom and quiet intuition, known to guide those who walked paths shaped by destiny. Zeus felt a serenity settle over him, as though her presence brought clarity to every uncertain part of his soul. Metis stepped closer, her movement slow and graceful, like the drifting of low clouds across a calm sky. "You have grown in silence," she said, her voice soft enough to soothe even the restless wind. Now the world beyond these mountains begins to feel your presence." Zeus listened, his heart steady but curious, sensing truth in every syllable she breathed. Metis lifted her hand, and the breeze responded with gentle motion, circling the two of them in a tender embrace. "Your father, Cronus, fears you," she said quietly, though her tone carried no malice. "He fears the prophecy that one of his children will rise against him." Zeus lowered his gaze, not in fear, but in soft contemplation. He had known nothing of Cronus beyond the whispers of the nymphs, yet the name felt heavy, like a stone placed upon still water. Metis continued, "Cronus swallowed each of your siblings to keep himself safe. But you were saved, hidden from his sight." Zeus felt the wind pause, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He thought of the cave, of Rhea's trembling hands, of Amalthea's warmth, and of the Curetes, who had protected him since infancy. His childhood had been gentle, filled with kindness, yet its foundation had been laid upon escape and fear. Metis studied him quietly, her eyes reflecting both compassion and ancient knowledge. "You feel the sky calling to you," she said softly. "It is not merely curiosity, it is recognition." Zeus lifted his head, feeling the distant hum of thunder settle into his bones with quiet certainty. "What must I do?" he asked in a voice barely above a whisper. The question was simple, gentle, and yet it carried the first note of the path he was destined to walk. Metis stepped closer, placing her hand lightly over his heart. "Not with rage," she said, "not with violence, but with wisdom." Her touch radiated warmth, like sunlight filtered through soft clouds. "You cannot face Cronus alone," she continued, "but there is a way to bring forth those he has hidden away." Zeus listened, drawn into her calm, steady words, as though they were the very rhythm of the world. "Cronus swallowed your siblings whole," Metis said, "but they live still within him." Zeus' eyes softened with both sorrow and wonder at the thought. "They sleep in darkness," she whispered, waiting for the moment they may open their eyes again. The breeze shifted gently, carrying the scent of distant rain. Metis lowered her hand, letting the wind dance through her fingers before it wrapped softly around Zeus. "You will free them," she said, "not by force, but through the wisdom that flows within you." Zeus felt the truth settle into him, quiet and certain like the slow illumination of dawn. He did not feel fear, only a calm purpose beginning to take shape within his heart. Metis smiled, her expression warm and serene. "I will guide you," she said, "but you must walk with gentleness. Even the sky learns slowly before it storms." Zeus nodded, accepting the path, not as a burden, but as a natural continuation of the life he had lived, one shaped by calm, not chaos. The wind circled him once more, brushing against his skin in a tender promise of the journey ahead. Metis began to fade into soft golden light, her form dissolving into the breeze that had carried her. "Remember," her voice whispered, growing distant and delicate. "Balance is your strength, Zeus, not fury." And then she was gone, leaving only the quiet warmth of her presence lingering in the air. Zeus stood alone on the mountainside, the wind humming softly around him. He looked toward the distant horizon, where thunder rolled gently across the clouds. For the first time, he understood the sound not as a call of curiosity, but as a reminder of who he was meant to become. With a calm, steady breath, Zeus turned away from the cave of his childhood and took his first step toward the world that awaited him. The rebellion had not begun with a battle. It had begun with a whisper. Zeus descended the mountain with a steady calm, guided not by urgency, but by the quiet certainty that Metis had placed within him. The world felt larger now, filled with soft winds and distant sounds that carried secrets he had never heard before. Leaves rustled gently as he passed, brushing against his arms like small gestures of encouragement from the forest. The sky remained clear above him, painted in soft blue and pale silver clouds that drifted peacefully across the horizon. Zeus walked with unhurried steps, feeling the land beneath him, sensing how each breath of wind shifted in response to his presence. It was as though the world recognized him now, not as a hidden child, but as someone it had been quietly waiting for. He followed the winding path toward the realm where Cronus dwelled, a place shaped by stern silence and heavy shadows. Along the way, Metis appeared at times beside him, not in full form, but as glimmers of golden light that softened the road ahead. She spoke through the breeze, her voice gentle as always, guiding him with words carried on soft currents of air. "Do not approach in anger," she whispered. "Approach with clarity." Zeus listened with a calm heart, understanding that the strength she spoke of was not the kind that roared, but the kind that flowed like a quiet river. He reached a wide valley where tall grasses swayed in slow rhythm, bending slightly as though bowing in recognition. The mountains behind him faded into the distance, their peaks enveloped in a thin veil of soft mist. Before him lay a land ruled by Cronus, where time itself felt heavy, as if each second carried the weight of caution and fear. Zeus sensed the air changing, more still, more controlled, as though even the breeze hesitated to move freely. This was the world Cronus shaped, a place where silence pressed closely against the ground. Yet Zeus felt no fear, only a gentle resolve that settled into his bones like the quiet glow of early dawn. He continued forward, passing streams that trickled softly over smooth stones, their water shimmering like fragments of forgotten memories. Birds perched on branches watched him with curious stillness, tilting their heads as if sensing something extraordinary in his calm presence. Zeus paused once to rest beneath an ancient olive tree whose leaves whispered softly above him. The shade wrapped around him like a cool embrace, and he closed his eyes to feel the subtle heartbeat of the land. He remembered the cave, the nymphs, Amalthea, and the Curetes who had guarded him with silent loyalty. Their kindness filled him with steady strength, reminding him of the gentle origins of his journey. When he stood again, the breeze rose with him, swirling lightly, as though lifting the weight of uncertainty from his shoulders. Ahead, the distant silhouette of Cronus' domain appeared on the horizon, dark and immense against the softened sky. The structure rose like a monument carved out of ancient stone, standing tall in a land touched by heavy silence. Zeus approached slowly, each step guided by Metis' wisdom rather than haste or anger. He could feel the presence of Cronus long before he reached the gates, a deep, echoing force that rippled through the air like a low vibration of the earth. Time felt thicker here, each moment stretching a little longer, as though Cronus himself held the hours in his hands. Zeus paused at the foot of the steps leading to the great hall, letting the calm settle within him. He knew he carried no weapon, no shield, no armor, only the gentle truth of the path Metis had shown him. The great doors of the hall loomed before him, carved with ancient symbols of the Titans who once shaped the world in their image. Zeus placed his hand upon the cool surface of the door, feeling the faint pulse of power within the stone. With a slow push, the doors opened, releasing a soft echo through the vast chamber inside. Cronus sat at the far end of the hall, his presence immense and heavy, like a mountain sitting upon the horizon. His eyes were deep and watchful, filled with the shadows of countless years marked by fear of the prophecy. He lifted his head as Zeus entered, the air tightening with stillness. Zeus stepped forward calmly, his footsteps creating gentle sounds that traveled across the stone floor. Cronus studied him with a mixture of suspicion and something more fragile uncertainty. For though he did not recognize the child he had once sought, he sensed something familiar in the quiet strength before him. The hall remained silent as Zeus approached the throne, stopping at a respectful distance beneath the dim glow of torchlight. He bowed his head slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement of the powerful being before him. Cronus' voice broke the silence, deep and measured. "Who are you?" Zeus lifted his gaze, his eyes steady and calm, reflecting not fear, but a gentle purpose. "A traveler," he said quietly, "seeking truth." The simplicity of his words unsettled Cronus more than any challenge could have. The Titan shifted in his seat, gripping the armrests as though grounding himself. "Why come here?" Cronus asked, his voice tinged with caution. Zeus responded with a softness that carried surprising weight, to restore balance. The torches flickered, as if reacting to the quiet power beneath his tone. Cronus narrowed his eyes, sensing an undercurrent in Zeus' calm presence. "Balance?" the Titan repeated, his voice trembling slightly at the edges. Zeus nodded slowly. "There are those who sleep in darkness," he said, waiting to breathe freely again. For a moment, Cronus' eyes widened, not in recognition of Zeus, but in the recognition of truth too long avoided. The hall grew colder, silence thickening between them like fog. Zeus raised his hand slowly, not in threat, but in gentle reassurance. "I do not come to destroy," he said softly. "I come to awaken." The words settled into the air like falling feathers, light, calm, but undeniable. Cronus shifted uneasily, a rare tremor moving through his ancient form. For the first time, Zeus saw uncertainty flicker across the Titan's face, weakening the mask of control he had worn for ages. The room remained still, the future hanging delicately between silence and breath. And in that moment, the quiet rebellion began, not with a strike, not with thunder, but with truth spoken softly in a hall built on fear. The hall remained still long after Zeus spoke, as though the air itself was trying to understand the quiet courage in his words. Cronus' gaze wavered, his expression flickering between suspicion and the faint tremor of old fear. He never spoke aloud. Zeus stood calmly, the soft glow of torchlight brushing against his face like warm breaths of fire. He did not raise his voice, nor did he move closer, for he knew that gentleness could travel farther than force ever could. Metis' teachings echoed within him like a steady heartbeat, reminding him that truth carried its own quiet power. Cronus shifted uncomfortably on his throne, the weight of countless years pressing down upon him. For the first time, the Titan felt time slipping from his grasp. Zeus watched him with calm eyes, sensing the cracks forming not in Cronus' throne, but in his fear. A moment of silence passed, long, delicate, and fragile. Then Metis' voice brushed softly against Zeus' mind, carried by a whispering breeze. "Now," she murmured, her tone gentle and sure, "guide him toward release." Zeus lifted his hand slowly, palm open, as though offering Cronus a place to rest his burdens. "You have carried fear for too long," Zeus said, his voice quiet enough to ease even the restless shadows. "It has weighed on you, more heavily than any prophecy." Cronus flinched slightly, as though the words touched something buried deep within him. Zeus continued, with patient softness, "Let go of what you hold inside. Let them breathe again." The Titan's jaw tightened, the memories of swallowing his own children flickering like ghosts behind his eyes. For years, he had trapped them in darkness, hoping to silence fate. Now, faced with Zeus' calm presence, he felt a strange heaviness rising in his chest. A heaviness, not of fear, but of long-ignored truth. Zeus took another gentle breath before speaking again. "They are alive," he whispered, waiting for release. The words glowed in the hall like distant stars appearing one by one. Cronus tried to steady his voice, but it trembled like an old structure finally beginning to crack. "Why would I free them?" he asked, though the question sounded more like a plea than a challenge. Zeus lowered his hand, not out of defeat, but to show that he asked nothing through force. "Because holding them has never protected you," he said softly. "It has only chained you to your own fear." Cronus' breath grew uneven, time shifting around him like ripples on a disturbed pond. For the first time in ages, the Titan felt the truth settle upon him with unbearable clarity. Silence deepened, soft and heavy. Then Zeus stepped closer, not with menace, but with a gentleness that felt almost like forgiveness. "You are not alone in your burden," Zeus said. "Let them return to the world. Let the prophecy breathe, not suffocate you." The torches flickered, their flames bowing slightly toward Zeus, as if acknowledging the quiet wisdom in his words. Cronus lowered his gaze, his ancient hands tightening around the throne. Memories of his swallowed children pressed against the edges of his mind. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, each a silent heartbeat trapped within him. He felt their presence like distant lights, flickering inside a long-closed chamber. Zeus waited patiently, allowing the Titan to face the truth at his own pace. The hall filled with a soft, trembling energy, as though the world sensed the nearness of change. Cronus exhaled slowly, a breath that carried centuries of tension. His voice cracked softly as he asked, "If I release them, what becomes of me?" Zeus answered with the gentlest honesty, "You become lighter." Cronus closed his eyes, and for a moment, he looked less like the ruler of time, and more like a weary soul longing for rest. The air shifted, and a faint glow gathered around Zeus' Metis' quiet affirmation manifesting as warm light drifting through the hall. Cronus felt the warmth brush against him, reminding him of a world before fear had ruled his decisions. He pressed a hand to his throat, where the shadows of swallowed lives rested. A deep shudder moved through him, not of pain, but of release, long denied. The torches dimmed, then flared softly as Cronus leaned forward. A warm, glowing mist rose from his chest, shimmering like liquid firelight. Zeus stepped back gently as the light grew brighter, filling the hall with soft radiance. Slowly, the mist took shape, 5 luminous orbs, fragile yet pulsing with life. Cronus bowed his head, unable to watch the moment, burdened by both grief and relief. One by one, the orbs drifted to the floor, their glow softening until forms began to emerge within the light. Hestia appeared first, calm and warm like a hearth at dawn. Then Demeter, carrying the quiet pulse of growing life. Hera followed, her presence regal, even in her first breath of freedom. Hades emerged next, shadows circling him without fear or malice, only depth. And finally Poseidon, carrying the deep murmur of distant seas in his chest. The hall filled with a softness unlike anything it had known for millennia. The siblings gasped their first breaths of open air after lifetimes in darkness. Their eyes found Zeus, drawn to him not by force, but by the gentle pull of recognition. Zeus bowed his head respectfully, acknowledging them with quiet reverence. "You are free," he said softly. The words settled over them like a warm breeze after a long storm. Hestia stepped forward first, her eyes glowing with humble gratitude. "You brought us back," she whispered, her voice warm enough to soften the coldest stone. Demeter followed, touching Zeus' arm with a gentle hand. Hera's gaze softened with regal approval as she observed the brother who had freed them without violence. Hades approached with measured calm, shadows trailing him like loyal companions. Poseidon clasped Zeus' shoulder with a quiet strength, the distant sea stirring within him like an awakened memory. Zeus looked at them all, feeling the weight of destiny shift softly into place. The family that had been broken by fear was whole again, not through battle, but through compassion. Metis' voice drifted through the hall like a soft wind. "The storm begins with unity," she whispered. Zeus understood. This was not the end of fear, but the beginning of balance. Cronus sank back into his throne, weariness clinging to his form like heavy twilight. He had freed what he once imprisoned, and in doing so, loosened the chains around his own heart. Zeus turned to his liberated siblings, their faces glowing with the first breaths of freedom. He spoke softly, but his voice carried the steady pulse of destiny. "We walk as one now." The hall glowed brighter, warmed by the presence of 5 newly awakened gods. And in that quiet moment, the true alliance of Olympus was born not in thunder, but in release. The reunion of Zeus and his siblings brought a new stillness to the world, a calm that carried both hope and quiet anticipation. They stood together in the vast hall, the gentle glow of torchlight wrapping around them like a soft embrace. For the first time in ages, the children of Rhea breathed freely, their hearts beating in harmony rather than darkness. Yet, beyond the peaceful warmth of their gathering, the world trembled with a subtle shift, sensing change approaching like distant thunder. Zeus felt it most clearly, a low hum beneath the earth that pulsed in steady, patient waves. Metis' voice drifted softly through the hall, gentle as drifting leaves carried by a slow breeze. "The Titans will feel this awakening," she whispered. "They will not yield easily." Zeus nodded with quiet understanding, knowing that the journey ahead would not be shaped by anger, but by balance. He looked at his siblings, seeing not warriors, but beings of deep purpose waiting to step into their true forms. Hestia's warm presence calmed the air, her soft glow steady like a hearth at twilight. Demeter carried the gentle rhythm of life, the pulse of seeds stirring beneath the soil. Hera stood with quiet strength, her calm authority filling the space around her like the steady rise of dawn. Hades remained serene, shadows settling around him like the cool stillness of night. Poseidon breathed with the deep patience of the ocean, tides rising and falling softly within him. Together, they embodied balance, each one a quiet force shaped not by violence, but by nature's gentlest rhythms. Zeus stepped forward, his voice calm and even. "The Titans will come," he said softly. "We must meet them not with rage, but with unity." The siblings nodded, their expressions filled with serene understanding. The first stirrings of the Titans echoed across the land, like distant tremors carried through stone. Mountains shifted subtly, their peaks humming with the awakening of ancient powers long at rest. Clouds gathered slowly at the horizons, drawn by forces deeper than weather, older than memory. The world held its breath as two eras approached each other, not as storm and destruction, but as the meeting of old and new. Zeus and his siblings stepped into the open plains beneath a sky softened by pale morning light. The grass swayed gently around them, brushing their ankles like threads of silk guided by the wind. The air tasted of rain, though not a single drop had yet fallen. Poseidon touched the ground with his fingertips, feeling the pull of distant oceans respond like a steady heartbeat. Hades closed his eyes, sensing the quiet pulse of the earth's deep places, the caves and hollows that whispered ancient truths. Demeter breathed deeply, the scent of soil and growing life rising around her like a warm exhale. Hestia placed her hand over her heart, her warmth spreading softly through the group like a shared flame. Hera lifted her chin, her calm presence binding them together with silent assurance. Zeus looked toward the distant mountains where the Titans gathered, their presence vast and heavy, casting long shadows across the land. The air shimmered faintly as they approached, not with violent force, but with a slow, inevitable gravity. The ground trembled softly beneath their steps, each vibration steady and deep, like the slow toll of an ancient bell. The Titans emerged from the haze of the horizon, their silhouettes shaped by centuries of power and age. Their faces carried the weight of old duties and old fears, not malice. They paused before Zeus and his siblings, the two groups facing each other in a silence so profound it felt sacred. The world around them quieted, as though every leaf, every breeze, every grain of sand was listening. Zeus stepped forward, not with authority, but with gentle intention. He spoke softly, his voice carrying the calm resonance of a distant storm preparing to break. "We do not stand here to destroy," he said, "but to restore balance." The Titans shifted, their ancient eyes heavy with memories of a world they once shaped. Some looked weary, others uncertain, as though unsure whether they should resist or surrender to the natural end of their era. A soft rumble moved through the sky, not of anger, but of transition. The first exchange between Olympians and Titans began not with a clash, but with a deep, trembling breath shared by both sides. Zeus raised his hand, and the clouds parted slightly, revealing a soft glow of sunlight that fell gently upon the land. The Titans responded with a slow surge of energy that rolled across the plains like a distant, muffled drumbeat. Hestia's warmth rose to meet it, the glow around her steady and soothing, softening the edges of the Titan's power. Demeter's presence caused small shoots of grass to rise at her feet, swaying in gentle unity with the earth's tremor. Poseidon lifted his gaze, summoning the calm strength of ocean tides that rose and fell in slow, rhythmic harmony. Hades opened his palms, letting shadows expand around him like a protective veil, cool and serene rather than fearful. Hera stepped forward, her quiet authority weaving through their energies, like a gentle current binding them together. The world resonated with the meeting of powers, each side moving like dancers in a slow, ancient choreography. Thunder rolled across the sky in deep, soothing tones, echoing the quiet intensity of this moment. Zeus breathed deeply, the sky opening around him like a welcoming embrace. Lightning flickered softly above, not striking, but illuminating the clouds in warm, muted glow. The Titans responded with a pulse of their own energy, steadier now, as though acknowledging the rising presence of the Olympians. Their power moved like slow waves of heat across the land, ancient and patient. The ground vibrated gently, the air shimmering with calm tension. Zeus lifted his hand again, this time guiding the energies with slow, intentional grace. The Olympians followed his rhythm, their powers weaving together in soft arcs of color and light. The Titans pushed back, but their strength felt tired, unsteady, like old stones shifting beneath new growth. The land hummed as their energies met, swirling together in spirals of gray, gold, blue, and deep green. For 10 long years, the war unfolded like this slow, rhythmic, more song than battle. The world heard it not as thunderous destruction, but as a low, constant symphony of change. Mountains trembled quietly, rivers shifted their paths with soft murmurs, and forests leaned gently toward the horizon, as though listening. Zeus guided his siblings with patience, each movement deliberate, each gesture soft but certain. The Titans pushed with steady strength, but each year their rhythm slowed, their steps lengthened, their breaths grew heavier. The Olympians grew calmer, stronger, more aligned with the world as they harmonized their energies. And the world, in turn, listened and learned. The sky brightened, the earth steadied, the sea breathed more deeply. Balance drew nearer with each passing moment. And though no blades struck and no fury roared, the war progressed quietly toward its destined end, shaped not by violence, but by the slow turning of an age. The 10th year of the great struggle arrived, not with thunderous force, but with a calmness that felt like the world preparing to breathe again. The air trembled softly, as though the earth itself sensed the nearing end of an age. Zeus stood at the center of the vast plain, his siblings forming a quiet circle around him, each one radiating their gentle strength. The Titans gathered opposite them, their forms grand and solemn, burdened by centuries of protecting a world that no longer needed their weight. Their eyes carried a mixture of fatigue and reluctant acceptance, like old stars fading gently into twilight. The sky above them was pale and open, streaked with soft light that neither side recognized as victory or defeat, but simply change. A slow wind drifted across the land, weaving through the grass and brushing against both armies with equal tenderness. Zeus breathed in that wind, letting its calm fill his chest, until his heartbeat settled into a gentle rhythm. The end would not come through fury, only through balance. The Titan's final surge of power rose from the earth like a tired sigh, heavy and slow, wavering in the air before it reached the Olympians. Zeus lifted his hand, and his siblings responded in silent harmony, weaving their energies together with soft, measured grace. Hestia's warmth flowed like a steady flame, comforting and bright. Demeter's life energy moved like growing vines, wrapping softly through the air. Hera's presence anchored them with calm authority, ensuring every motion carried intention. Hades guided cool shadows in controlled patterns, letting them absorb the excess force without harm. Poseidon lifted waves of hidden water beneath the soil, letting their slow motion cradle the impact. Zeus united their powers with a soft pulse of skylight, creating a gentle barrier that held firm without aggression. The energies met, swirled, and softened, blending into a luminous spiral that illuminated the land in muted gold. The Titans staggered under the resonance, not in pain, but in recognition of their strength, fading against the steady harmony of the younger gods. The plain fell silent, except for the quiet hum of power settling into the earth. Cronus stepped forward, his once mighty presence now softened like an old shadow thinning in the morning sun. He looked at Zeus, not with hatred, but with a weary acceptance that felt strangely peaceful. Zeus lowered his head slightly, offering respect rather than triumph. "This is not your end," Zeus said gently. "It is merely your rest." Cronus closed his eyes, exhaling slowly, as though relieved that the long tension of prophecy could finally loosen its grip. The ground beneath them glimmered faintly, forming soft spirals of light that wrapped around the Titan's feet. The spirals grew, rising like gentle vines woven from starlight and mist. They encircled the Titans slowly, tenderly, as though guiding them to a place of quiet sleep rather than confinement. The Titans did not resist. Their power had reached its natural conclusion, and their spirits were ready for stillness. Cronus bowed his head one final time before the light embraced him fully. The spirals carried the Titans downward, not harshly, but like the descent into a deep, peaceful dream. The ground opened beneath them in a soft glow, revealing the quiet realm of Tartarus, not a place of torment, but a silent chamber meant for eternal rest. Zeus watched with calm eyes as the light settled, sealing the chamber with a gentle pulse of earth and silence. The air stilled, then exhaled, as though the world had been holding its breath for 10 long years. The tension lifted, like fog, dissolving beneath the warmth of the sun. The plains brightened, colors returning slowly as the balance of the world shifted toward harmony. Zeus lowered his hand, feeling the quiet victory settle into his bones like a soft echo. His siblings stood around him, their faces illuminated with relief rather than triumph. Hestia placed her hand over her heart, her warmth spreading softly through the group. Demeter smiled faintly, sensing life stirring in the soil again. Hera lifted her gaze to the sky, feeling the promise of order forming gently in the air. Hades closed his eyes, listening to the new stillness that shaped the underworld without fear. Poseidon breathed deeply, the distant seas stirring in calm response. Zeus looked at each of them, sensing their unity like a quiet melody in his chest. "The world is ready," he whispered. They nodded, understanding the meaning without needing explanation. Together, they ascended the slopes of Mount Olympus, the wind guiding them with steady, whispering currents. The mountain rose like a shining pillar beneath the sky, its peak wrapped in clouds that glowed with soft light. When they reached the summit, the world unfolded below them in gentle waves of color and life. The sky opened above Zeus, vast and waiting, like a home he had always belonged to. A soft rumble of thunder rolled across the heavens, not in violence, but in welcome. Zeus lifted his hand, feeling the sky embrace him with warmth that spread through every breath he took. For the first time, lightning formed in his palm with complete serenity, glowing like a thread of woven sunlight. He closed his fingers gently around it, not claiming it as a weapon, but as a symbol of balance he would protect. The clouds drifted closer, gathering around the summit in soft spirals, forming the first throne of Olympus, not carved, but shaped by wind and sky. Zeus sat upon it, with the calm dignity of someone who understood both power and peace. His siblings took their places around him, forming the first true pantheon of the new era. The world below shimmered with quiet hope, ready for the dawn the Titans had never been able to give it. The storm had passed without rage. The prophecy had fulfilled itself through gentleness. And the age of Olympus began not with thunder, but with calm. The world settled slowly after the fall of the Titans, as though the earth itself was exhaling a breath it had held for 10 long years. The winds calmed first, drifting softly across the plains, like wandering dreams freed from ancient tension. Rivers resumed their gentle paths, flowing with renewed clarity as though they too sensed that balance had returned. Mountains that once trembled with the weight of battle now stood steady, wrapped in the quiet glow of early dawn. Zeus stood upon the highest peak of Mount Olympus, feeling the world below soften into peaceful stillness. The sky stretched above him like an open canvas, pale blue merging into warm gold, as though welcoming its new keeper. He breathed in slowly, letting the cool air fill his lungs with a calm that felt older than time. His siblings gathered around him, each carrying the soft echo of their own purpose. Hestia's warm glow radiated gently, creating a ring of comforting light around the group. Demeter stood close beside her, the scent of fresh soil and budding fields clinging to her presence. Hera's calm authority shaped the air around her, steady and unwavering. Hades lingered slightly behind, shadows curling around him like soft fabric. Poseidon's gaze stretched far toward the distant ocean, feeling its quiet pulse in every breath. Together, they formed a circle of balanced strength, gentle yet unbreakable. Zeus raised his hand, letting the soft wind brush against his palm, as though greeting an old friend. "We are no longer in hiding," he said, his voice steady and soft. "The world calls to us." The sky answered with a low, rumbling hum, gentle, warm, filled with recognition. Zeus closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the sky embrace him with a tenderness he had sensed since childhood. The wind that once whispered to him in the cave now flowed openly, weaving through his hair with affectionate familiarity. A faint shimmer of lightning flickered above, not striking, but dancing quietly among the clouds like a greeting. Zeus opened his eyes to find his siblings watching him with silent understanding. "It is time we bring order," Hera said gently, her voice steady as the rise of morning light. "Not through force," Demeter murmured, "but through harmony." Hestia placed her hand over her heart, and a warm glow radiated softly through the circle. "There must be a place where peace can live," she whispered. Hades nodded quietly. "And a place where souls may rest without fear." Poseidon lifted his chin, the distant tides touching his spirit like a calm rhythm. "And the seas must be guided, not controlled." Zeus listened, his heart filling with a quiet sense of unity. "We will divide the world," he said softly, "so that each part may flourish." The wind stilled, as though waiting. Hades stepped forward, shadows settling beneath his feet, like cool water spreading across stone. I will take the underworld, he said gently, his voice deep and calm. It is not a place of punishment, but of rest and balance. Poseidon placed his hand over the earth, feeling the hidden pull of the seas respond with gentle strength. The oceans call to me, he said softly. I will guide their tides. Demeter bowed her head, her fingers brushing lightly against the soil beneath her. I will tend the growing world, she whispered. Life will flourish where it is cared for. Hera lifted her gaze, steady and serene, her presence weaving an unseen structure through the space around her. I will keep order, she said softly. I will shape tradition and protect unity. Hestia's glow warmed. And I, she whispered, will keep the hearth alive. Zeus' heart swelled with calm pride as he looked at them, each stepping into their roles with gentle purpose. And I, he said quietly, will guide the sky. The clouds parted slightly in response, glowing with soft light. Thunder rolled gently, not as a warning, but as acknowledgement. Lightning shimmered across the sky, weaving in and out of the clouds like golden thread. Olympus itself felt the shift, humming softly beneath their feet. The mountain began to shape itself, forming a sanctuary in the clouds. Soft mist gathered, curling into graceful arches that shimmered with pale illumination. Wind carved gentle pillars of air, strong but quiet, supporting the beginnings of a celestial hall. Zeus stepped forward, feeling the energy of Olympus welcoming him with open calm. His siblings followed, their footsteps leaving faint traces of warmth, light, and shadow upon the forming floor. A space opened at the mountain's peak, glowing with a soft radiance that pulsed in rhythm with the sky. Zeus reached out, touching the air where the throne would be. Clouds gathered instantly, folding into one another with delicate grace. A throne of sky took shape, not carved, but formed from light, wind, and quiet intention. It shimmered with soft hues of blue, gold, and white, glowing with a warmth that seemed both ancient and new. Zeus sat upon it, slowly, feeling the calm of the sky settle beneath him like an old friend lying close. He felt no rush of power, only balance. Hera stood beside him, offering a gentle nod of approval. Hestia tended a small flame that appeared from her hands, its warmth comforting and steady. Demeter walked to the edge of the clouds, watching small green shoots sprout where her feet touched. Poseidon gazed toward the distant horizon, where oceans glimmered under soft sunlight. Hades closed his eyes, listening to the quiet heartbeat of the underworld far beneath the earth. The world was beginning to take shape, piece by piece, guided by calm and purpose. Days on Olympus moved like slow, peaceful waves. Zeus spent the mornings watching the sky's colors shift in gentle patterns. Sometimes he spoke to the clouds, asking them to move softly across the world. Sometimes he guided a breeze to carry cool comfort to lands scorched by sun. Sometimes he listened, simply listened, to the hum of the atmosphere, learning the sky's unspoken language. His connection to the wind deepened, each whisper of air becoming clearer, more familiar. When he raised his hand, lightning gathered softly, forming gentle arcs that glowed like threads of sunlight. When he breathed deeply, thunder rolled beneath his heartbeat, soft and steady. Olympus grew in beauty as days passed. Clouds sculpted into graceful halls, Light formed archways that shimmered at dawn and glowed at dusk. Gardens blossomed under Demeter's touch, filled with flowers that swayed gently in the high mountain wind. A hearth burned steadily under Hestia's care, radiating warmth throughout the celestial home. Hera organized the flowing parts of Olympus, ensuring every god found their place within the divine harmony. Poseidon sent waves of cool breeze upward, connecting the oceans below with the skies above. Hades shaped quiet pathways beneath Olympus, ensuring souls could pass into rest without fear or sorrow. Zeus walked among them all with calm steps, guiding each part of the world with gentle intention. He found joy not in ruling, but in balancing, not in commanding, but in listening, not in dominance, but in steadiness. The world below began to flourish. Fields grew lush under Demeter's blessing, their colors deepening with each sunrise. Rivers sparkled, flowing with clear, calm water. The sea breathed in long, gentle rhythms, its tides shaped by Poseidon's serene guidance. The underworld became a place of rest, peaceful and quiet beneath Hades' watchful care. Villages blossomed with warmth wherever Hestia's invisible flame rested. Order grew wherever Hera's influence touched, giving structure without harshness. Humans felt a subtle shift in the air, a quiet protection surrounding them. When storms came, they were not destructive, but cleansing. When lightning struck, it guided rather than harmed. When the sky darkened, it did so with soft intention, not fury. Zeus watched over all of it with gentle patience. He spoke to the wind, to the clouds, to the light, shaping their movements with calm understanding. He guided storms only when balance required it, never out of anger. He allowed sunlight to warm lands slowly, never too harshly. He lifted night when the world needed rest. He softened dawn when the world needed ease. Zeus was not a ruler of force, but a keeper of rhythm. Olympus glowed under his presence, a peaceful realm held between sky and earth. His siblings thrived beside him, each contributing to the harmony of existence. The newborn gods arrived with quiet grace, their lives unfolding in soft, luminous moments. Athena stepped forth from Zeus, mind like a gentle thought made real, her wisdom clear and calm. Apollo brought music that shimmered like sunlight on water. Artemis arrived with the hush of moonlight, serene and watchful. Hermes danced into Olympus on playful breezes, his laughter light and harmless. Each new presence added a layer of peace to the divine realm. Zeus guided them all with patience, teaching them the quiet strength of balance. He showed Apollo how the sun warmed gently when guided by intention. He taught Artemis how moonlight soothed the night without consuming it. He guided Hermes in shaping the winds so they could carry messages swiftly yet softly. Every lesson he offered was calm, steady, and filled with quiet affection. And as time passed, Olympus became not just a home for gods, but a sanctuary of serenity for the world. Zeus watched the world from his throne of sky, content in the harmony unfolding below him. Not a king ruling from above, but a guardian watching with soft, steady eyes. The age of Olympus dawned with gentle light, and the world breathed peacefully beneath the sky he kept. The story of Olympus settles now, like the final light of evening drifting behind distant hills. The world has found its balance, and the sky has taken its gentle guardian. And you, dear listener, are invited to rest with that same quiet balance filling your breath. Let the images of ancient mountains fade softly in your mind. Let the echoes of gods and winds fall into slow silence. Let the rhythm of your breathing match the calm heartbeat of a world at peace. Zeus sits upon his cloud-woven throne, watching the horizon with steady, quiet eyes. He is not calling storms. He is not shaping thunder. He is simply breathing. And as he breathes, the world beneath him breathes too. You may let your breath follow this same gentle pattern. In and out. Softly. Slowly. Without rush. Without force. Just the sky, drifting in and drifting out through you. Feel the weight of your shoulders begin to melt downward, as though the clouds of Olympus are lifting your worries away. Feel the space around you soften, like the air at twilight settling into a warm embrace. The gods are quiet now. Olympus is quiet now. The world is wrapped in the hush that follows harmony restored. And you, too, may enter that hush. Imagine the peak of Olympus again, but now emptied of movement. No footsteps, no voices, only a gentle breeze drifting through its shimmering halls. It carries the soft warmth of Hestia's eternal flame and the cool serenity of Demeter's green fields. It carries the faint song of Apollo's lyre, played not for celebration, but for rest. It carries the moonlit calm of Artemis' steps, slow and steady like falling feathers. It carries Hermes' soft laughter, fading quietly into the distance like a memory of joy. And it carries Zeus' steady breathing, woven into the sky like a sleeping lullaby. The wind moves through you now, brushing gently past your thoughts. You can let every worry loosen a little, like knots untying on their own. This is the hour when the world dims into peace, and you are allowed to follow it. Imagine lying at the foot of Olympus, on a bed of soft grass, warmed by the fading sun. The blades sway around you in slow, steady patterns, guided by a breeze that understands your need for stillness. Above you, the sky darkens into a deep, calming blue. A few stars appear, one by one, like tiny lanterns, placed gently into the night. No star rushes to shine. No star fights to be brighter. They simply glow, softly, steadily, just as you may rest now softly and steadily. Let your breath deepen just a little. Let your fingers relax. Let your jaw loosen. Let your eyelids feel heavier. Not from exhaustion, but from peace. The story does not need you to hold it anymore. The gods do not need you to remember their names right now. The world of myth continues on its own, quietly settling into the background of your thoughts. And you are allowed to drift. The grass beneath you becomes softer with each breath you take. The air becomes warmer, comforting, familiar. You can almost hear Hestia's hearth crackling gently somewhere nearby, its warmth reaching you like a blanket woven from light. You can almost hear Demeter tending to her fields, her hands brushing gently across the earth in slow, rhythmic motions. You can almost feel Hera's calm presence settling over Olympus, ensuring that nothing disturbs your rest. You can almost sense Poseidon's waves far below, their slow rise and fall reminding you of your own steady breathing. You can almost hear the faint whisper of Hades, assuring the world that nothing beneath it stirs in fear. And through it all, Zeus sits upon his throne of cloud and light, watching the peaceful night unfold. Thunder murmurs far away, soft, distant, harmless. Lightning flickers like the blink of a sleepy eye. The sky above you stretches wide and calm, an endless, comforting canopy. You are safe beneath it. You are held beneath it. You are small, in the most peaceful way, cradled by the vastness of a world that has found balance again. Let your breath fall into the soft rhythm of waves now. In and out, gentle, like fingers tracing the edge of a quiet stream. Your thoughts begin to drift toward the edges of your mind. They lose their sharpness, they soften. They grow fuzzy and warm, like words spoken through a half-remembered dream. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to catch them. Just let them float, like clouds drifting slowly across Zeus' sky. Each breath carries you deeper into the calm left behind by the gods. The land of mythology grows quieter, folding itself gently, like a storybook closing, after a long, soothing tale. You are lying beneath the night sky of Olympus now, your body dissolving into calm earth and calm air. The world feels softer than before. The air feels heavier, like a warm blanket, wrapping itself around your shoulders. Your mind feels looser, unburdened, like a river moving slowly in evening light. Let the calm stretch deeper into your chest. Let it settle across your back. Let it sink down your arms. Let it drift into your legs, heavy and soft. Your whole body becomes part of the wind-lit night. There is nothing left for you to do, nothing you must remember, nothing you must solve. You have traveled through the story of gods, and now the story is carrying you gently toward rest. Zeus watches from above, his gaze steady, kind, and quiet. He keeps the storms away from you. He keeps the night soft. He keeps the sky open and calm. His presence settles around you like the soft rumble of distant thunder promising safety. Feel the air grow even quieter. Feel the grass beneath you become even softer. Feel the stars above you glow, a little dimmer, as sleep draws closer. The world slows down around you, as though everything is preparing to rest with you. Even the gods step back now, giving you space to drift at your own pace. The clouds fade into darkness. The winds settle into a gentle hush. The mountains breathe quietly. Olympus becomes a silhouette of soft shadow and faint starlight. And you begin to slip between waking and dreaming. There is no urgency, no edge, only softness, only warmth, only the slow, steady rhythm of a peaceful night. Take one more breath. Slow, deep, gentle. Feel it travel through you like a warm wave rolling across sand. Let your exhale melt the last bit of tension in your body. Another breath comes on its own, even softer, even slower. The gods fade into distant memory. The sky closes its vast wings softly around you. And now, you rest in the quiet the world took 10 years to find. Drift, slowly, safely, into sleep. If you're still here, still drifting, thank you for sharing this quiet moment. The world of Olympus settles behind you now, soft and far away. Let it stay there, gentle and distant, like a dream already fading at the edges. Your breathing is slow, steady, calm. You've wandered through storms and skies, and now there is nothing left to do. Just rest, just float. The night is soft around you, the sky above you is warm and open, and the world is quiet enough to hold your dreams safely. So let yourself drift into that softness. Let your thoughts dim like lanterns growing small in the distance. Let sleep find you the way dawn finds the horizon, slow and tender. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you need to be. Good night. Sleep well. And let the rest of the story continue without you for now. The music will fade, slowly, softly, until all that remains is your breath and the quiet.